I'm great. So I loved your piece, The Perpetual Pandemic, and I've actually been saying that line over and over again to people because it's becoming so clear that that's what the mainstream media and the experts want. I want to start with Dr. Fauci. In your piece, you highlight something that I think is really important. You kind of say that there's a difference between when he's talking as an expert and now what kind of seems like he's talking as a crazy hypochondriac who doesn't want to do anything ever again.
Right. And he doesn't differentiate that for us, the audience, who he should be talking to and reassuring. He stated in an interview with Business Insider that he was asked, and the interviewer didn't really clarify if he was asking him as a lead infectious disease expert or if he was just asking him as celebrity Anthony Fauci. And he says, are you comfortable going to movie theaters now that you're vaccinated? And he says, no. And what about indoor dining? And he says, no. And what about travel? And he goes, no, that's a no. So you have, again, the leading infectious disease expert in the country doing all of these things who is vaccinated and saying he's still not going to go do these things. He's also someone who has said in the past he can't foresee handshakes coming back. And it sends this mixed message that, again, you're trying to get people vaccinated, but you're taking away all of the incentive for people to go out and get vaccinated. And again, like I said, I don't know if he's doing this as an expert or if he has OCD that he's inflicting on the rest of us or what, but these are all things that he should clarify. And if you notice, whenever he says the science, I'm standing behind the science, he rarely ever cites statistics or data or any of these things when he's talking. And he seems to be going further and further down the celebrity hole of what is our media.
Yeah, and something that I've been noticing a lot, and you point out, is that there's all this talk about vaccine hesitancy, and there is a lot of that in this country. And I'm kind of part of the group where I guess I would fall under Jen Psaki's Deadliest Catch, Mountain Dew. I watch all that stuff. And so maybe I need to be convinced. But how I really feel about it, Stephen, is I feel like, all right, well, if someone told me, Grace, if you sign up for a vaccine today, in 3 weeks, when you get your second shot, you can do whatever you want, I would go and get one. But they're not setting it up like that. In fact, Joy Reid, which you mentioned in your piece, says, I'm still going to be too scared. That's the word she used. I'm going to be too scared to take my mask off. So as someone who's on the fence, they really are the ones who are making people not want to get it.
Yeah, and I think this has a lot to do with a New York-centered media complex. People like Joy Reid don't spend much time in Texas or Florida. And I even ask, how much time has Dr. Fauci spent in Texas and Florida? They live these kind of Northeast isolated lifestyles where half of their, open activities are still on lockdown, while places like Texas, Florida, South Dakota, places like that have been open since last May. And you start to see places like Michigan, New York, where we just had from Axios yesterday report that New York overall just did the absolute worst. So I guess they have to give Cuomo an Oscar now. And so you have people who are living in New York City who are having these kind of condensed bubble lifestyles. And so it's almost like their geographical location is the thing that's making them hesitant. And I don't know why they want this perpetual pandemic. I obviously think the Biden administration wants to use it to restructure certain aspects of the country and the economy, because that's just what these people do. As far as media, like you say, like people like Joy Reid, who's like, hey, I'm vaccinated, but I'm still not going out. That in and of itself is a form of vaccine denialism. And of course, if this is allowed to perpetuate itself throughout media, and it's a genuine problem. And for whatever reason, they want this to continue. The new kind of discussion is about wearing masks outdoors. There is no discernible data that shows this virus transmits itself in any outdoors activities, whether it's the beach, whether it's sporting events, whether it's just walking around. And now you have a subsection of media who are saying you still need to wear your mask outdoors. You need to do this because it's for the community and you're spreading a good message. And I think that just reeks of self-importance. A mask is a medical necessity. And once that necessity ceases and it's gone, you should be taking your mask off.
No, exactly. There's a huge level of virtue signaling to this. I follow an account that it's a celebrity account, and they these people will send in pictures of celebrities they see on the street in New York or whatever, and they're invading people's privacy. Like they'll take a picture, let's say, Stephen, of John Hamm eating a sandwich. And these people have no problem sending that into this celebrity account, but then they always remark at the end, he didn't have his mask on. And I'm thinking to myself, you're kind of a slimeball for taking pictures of this guy secretly and sending them into an account, but you still want to let people know his mask protocol. It's absolutely to make people feel good about themselves.
Right. It's to make them feel important, and it's about feelings and not science. They kind of want it both ways, where they claim to be, the political aisle that represents science, but then when science comes along and says, well, this is a virus with a 99% survival rate. It's nowhere near the 40% where liberals and progressives on the left side of the aisle think that that's the hospitalization rate, and that's largely due to their own media intake, what they read in the New York Times, what they see on CNN, MSNBC. It's going to be interesting because the Oscars are coming up this week. I generally don't. I'm not someone who watches those anymore or anything like that. But the Oscars are going to have a live broadcast with celebrities indoors and no masks. And one of the things, the protocols, is they want people to put their masks on during commercial break in that audience. So now you're going to have a situation where you're going to see like Brad Pitt and John Hamm and all these Hollywood celebrities indoors gathered together, and none of them are going to be wearing masks, while we're still being told, you can't walk 10 feet from a hostess station at a restaurant to a booth without having a mask on. And so that's going to create another problem, and it's going to create more hypocrisy. So that's going to be something that's going to be interesting to watch to come out of that broadcast, which will be the only interesting to watch to come out of that broadcast.
I'm speaking with Stephen Miller from Spectator US. You guys can check him out on Twitter at RedSteez. Stephen, I know you tweeted this out, so I know you've seen it, but I kind of start to think to myself, I wonder how they're going to move the goalposts any further, because like you pointed out in your piece, this has to come to an end at some point. People are getting sick of Dr. Fauci. Even a lot of my liberal friends are getting sick of, the masks, their skin's breaking out. That's usually a point where for at least my girlfriends, they start to go, oh God, I can't wear this anymore. So I've been noticing that. But so I started to think to myself, what's the next level they're going to take this to? And I think I figured it out. I want to play Greta Thunberg for you. This is cut 16, please.
Just with the climate crisis, those who are the most vulnerable need to be prioritized, and global problems require global solutions. It is completely unethical that high-income countries are now vaccinating young and healthy people if that happens at the expense of people in risk groups and on the front lines in low and middle-income countries. And this is a moral test. We talk today about showing solidarity, and yet vaccine nationalism, it's what's running the vaccine distribution.
Vaccine nationalism. Stephen, what's your take on that?
Yeah, that's a new fun term. She apparently is an expert in everything. She's an expert on, the Earth's climate and Chinooks of the winds of the north, and now she's an expert on vaccinations. And I'm not someone who irrationally goes after Greta Thunberg. I think she's a useful tool for, a group that's behind her, and I think that those are the people that, should draw most of the ire and not this teenage girl. But yeah, of course you're going to see this. This is what they've been talking about with equity, the new equity talking point that's, everywhere since last August and was nowhere prior, which is, for the country that came up with the vaccine, essentially to be vaccinating our own population is selfish, as opposed to now going and vaccinating other populations throughout Europe and on other countries throughout Africa. And I do think it's a delicate topic, but I do think our population here first, it should be the priority. And this is generally what we ran. This is a larger picture of what Ron DeSantis ran into in Florida, which was the media tried to kind of go after him for vaccinating seniors first. And they tried to frame it as, well, they are the wealthy and they are his donors, and you're not vaccinating poor populations. And that turned out to also not be true. But it's not, the fault of the governor that Florida has, by and large, an elderly population who that's where they go to retire. So yes, they're going to be generally of upper to middle class. But this virus does not care about, equity. It does not care about what we talk about vaccine nationalism and anything like that. This virus cares about vulnerable populations, and those are the people that need to be taken care of first. Then we can look at, how do we go about, of course, we go about trying to get the rest of the world vaccinated in places. And of course, we want to be the country that should be on the forefront of that. But again, this is someone making a case for a kind of climate extremist group. And I, for one, just think she needs to be ignored.
Stephen Miller from The Spectator, I'm going to let you go, but I have one more question for you. I think that you probably expected Maxine Waters to come out and say what she said at the riot/protests on Saturday night. It's not the first time she has had that kind of rhetoric, and it's kind of to be expected. But I was surprised today to hear Joe Biden commenting on this, and he said, "Well, the jury is sequestered." Were you shocked to hear him say, "I'm praying they come to the right verdict"?
No, that's who Joe Biden is. That's who these people are. They have a vested interest in this verdict because they think their voting base has a vested interest in this verdict, and therefore they're going to put their thumb on the scale in any way they can. And if you remember, we never really were at a point where presidents were asked about local jury trials in cities and in states, and this really changed with Barack Obama and the Trayvon Martin trial, to where now we have to get every public official to weigh in and put their thumb on the scale, primarily being driven by our media. And so, no, nothing shocks me with Joe Biden. He is who he is for the last 40 to 50 years, and our media can try to pass him off as, the country's soft-spoken grandpa who's just trying to give the country a Werther's so we can heal. But that's never who Joe Biden has been. This is the guy who said Mitt Romney was going to re-enslave black people. So they're simply getting their base juiced up. The media is helping them do it. And, what looks like is going to happen is what happens with every case with the media. What happened in Ferguson and Baltimore and Oakland, which is an American city burns to the ground. The media sits there and films it. And then the business owners, who are generally poor minorities, this is their livelihood, they have to clean up the ashes, and the media leaves, and no one is there to tell their story. And so this is a cycle that's going to go on and on until they are told to eventually stay away, which is what we saw in Brooklyn Center. We saw residents, we saw protesters who were essentially telling Antifa and the media to get out of here. You're going to cause a lot of damage. And if you've noticed, the Brooklyn Center stuff has kind of gone away now because the media doesn't want to antagonize the people that live there, but they do, and they're very much looking forward to 3 more weeks of protests of buildings burning down where they can say that this is mostly peaceful.
Exactly. And I saw you getting a little back and forth with Sarah Sidner, and she's from CNN, and she was saying, she basically was patting herself on the back. I'm not going anywhere. And it's like the protesters are the ones who want you to leave.
Yeah, the residents are the ones telling you to leave, and they're African-American residents. So do those lives matter to the lives of the business owners who are going to lose their beauty parlors, their bodegas, their small businesses, their livelihoods? Do those lives matter as well? And what we learn is that eventually they don't. Like I said, this started with Ferguson, where reporters, we had 2 or 3 reporters come out of Ferguson, and one of them is now on like a documentary circuit, promoting films, hanging out with celebrities. They're on 60 Minutes now. And so reporters see this as a moment. They see this as how can they get their star turn as flames engulf a community behind them. And then what they do is they pack up their cameras and they leave and they look for the next city, and nobody writes the story of the people who lost their businesses. And those are generally the people who are the biggest victims of all of this.
Stephen Miller, thank you so much for joining the show. I will tweet out your column once again, The Perpetual Pandemic. Everyone should check out all of Stephen's work on spectator.us. It's a great site, if I do say so myself, and he has some great pieces. Thank you very much for joining the show.
No problem, Grace. Thanks. Cheers.
And he absolutely is true. I just want to say about the grandpa thing, I don't like comparing Joe Biden to grandpas either, because I know a lot of cool grandpas. My grandpas were great. They were a lot more with it than Uncle Joe. Since I was in my early 20s, I've struggled with acid reflux. You guys know this. I love coffee. I love salsa. I love chocolate. I actually had some chocolate right before bed last night, and I did get a little bit of acid reflux, but all I do now when I feel it coming, because acid reflux is like one of those things, you start to feel it before it actually happens. I just take a little bit of Balance 7. It works long term. It's a great product. One-stop shopping to help increase your energy levels, aid in digestion, heartburn, and so much more. Check out balance7.com and learn why balancing your immune system is so important for the performance, or balancing your body is so important for the performance of your immune system. This is all you do. You take 3 ounces a day. Within 72 hours, most people begin to have more energy, greater clarity of thought, and just feel healthier overall. Order your 1-month supply at balance7.com. Use code word GRACEFREE to save $10 off your first order and get free shipping. If you're one of the first 50 people to order this, you also may receive Smooth Skin, an exfoliant and deep cleansing skin conditioner valued at $13.99, and you'll get it for free. If you've struggled with acid reflux, I've had a lot of people reach out to me since I started promoting this product, because a lot of people have that. They get heartburn. It's awful. Go to balance7.com and you can get a wonderful product. You'll receive $10 off your first order of a 30-day supply, free shipping, and a chance to receive Smooth Skin. We'll be back on the other side with the Grace Curley Show.
You're listening to the Grace Curley Show.
This hour of the Grace Curley Show is brought to you by the Howie Carr VIP Studio Experience. Tickets are available now with experiences beginning in May. To order, go to howiecarrshow.com and click on the VIP tab.